Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to a Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and it's a pleasure to have you back with us again. And tonight, we're going to talk about communities, people, families. We too often take for granted how much we do for each other, and it's really great to see that there's some people who actually care about their community, like the person that we're going to interview tonight on our show. And Buddha, if you put her pictures up on the screen, I want to introduce Gwendolyn Primus, an outstanding community advocate with a lifelong mission to better her native Bronx community, where she attended New York City public schools as a young child, PS 132, JHS 145 and 148, Taft High School, and subsequently a degree from the College of New Rochelle. For 42 years, she's been a resident of the Claremont Village section of the Bronx Borough and a tenant association member, where she raised her 4 children in her native community and now is a grandmother. She strives to improve the lives of families in the Bronx, advocating for affordable housing, elderly homes, job creation and empowerment, and resources for local businesses, as in the BP Mall on Washington Avenue and the Pathmark Mall. With her unwavering commitment and principles for better education, Gwen developed a strong view about the vital importance of public education in the New York City public schools, and was appointed by Bronx Borough President Adolfo Carrion for the New York City Board of Education Region 1, District 9. For over 11 years, she has served as the president of the School Board District 9, taking care of 40 schools and 33,000 plus students. As president of the Parents Association for 8 consecutive years, as a city coordinator for United Parents Association, which serves parents and students in all New York City's 5 boroughs. And she's spoken at our Capitol up in Albany as a lobbyist for the New York City public schools. Some of Gwendolyn Primus's recent personal achievements and affiliations include Primus Advocacy, Family, Community, and Youth Engagement, New York City Board of Education Region 1, District 9, President Delegate for the United States Chamber of Commerce, Liaison for Seniors for Better Living Conditions and Quality Care, President of Webster Morrisania Tenants Association. And Buddha, if you bring her up on the screen, I want to bid a warm welcome to Gwendolyn Primus.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Crocker. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have someone who is not just talking, but is doing like you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you again.
Well, I think in our world, one of the problems is we don't acknowledge enough, and we don't acknowledge those who do. So tonight's show is your acknowledgement. And the first thing I want to ask you, with so much on your plate that you had as a mother of 4 children, what inspired you to take on all these extra community positions?
Well, it started because I wanted to be part of my children's education. So I was a working mother, and I had to make a decision on whether I wanted to have a career or want to have successful children. So at that time, my husband and I, we made a decision that I would be more involved with the kids' education, because one of my son had an incident. He was in the 1st grade, had an incident in the school that should have never happened to a child. And from that point on, I knew where my energy should be in the school with them. From that point, I became the PA president, PTA president, and it went on from there. And my quest to improve education just led me into the next position, and on up. And as a result, I started teaching other parents on how to be parent leaders in their children's school and be a partner in their children's education as well.
Well, I want to laud you for doing that. In today's world, something that I see missing is the mother in the house. The mother's love, the mother's discipline, and the mother's direction, experience. And to me, I think we've lost in our world economically, for economic reasons, we've lost the most important part of our really civilization, which is a mother to form that. So I laud you, and I think it's fantastic that you brought that. So I want to ask you, because you've been involved in so many different things. So let's take first, as a Board of Ed representative that you have been for quite a while now, what do you see as the most important factors in the New York City school system that you feel need to be addressed?
Well, definitely the pandemic. I know they were not prepared for it, but we've been in the pandemic for 2 years. They should have a better plan in place for the children. They go back to school. If someone have COVID, the school is shut down for 2 weeks. The kids are back to remote learning. We're losing thousands of children with this remote learning. They were not prepared. They were not prepared on how to teach remotely. Kids weren't prepared on how to learn remotely. And this back and forth to school is not good for the children. In addition, the parents can't work because they don't have anyone to stay home with these children. So these are some of the things that we're encountering now in the various communities. Parents who are forced to stay home because school is shut down for 2 weeks and they go back for a week or two and then it's shut down again. They can't hold a job. They can't. So there are a lot of things that can be in place, but that are not in place. I just think that we just need a better solution to what's not happening in this school.
It's a very good point. And, there's been so much controversy because obviously there's been so much stress and no one wants to have anyone get sick, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it seems like in kids that they recover very quickly if they even get it because they're so robust and young. But, I think your point is well taken that, keeping them remote keeps them isolated. And to me, it takes away a lot of what a school brings to a child when they're young. It brings them socializing, other kids, right?
Yes. Physical activities, moving around. It's just countless of the things that they're not getting as opposed to staying home learning.
It's so true. You know, sometimes when we look at education, I think we kind of just kind of are narrow-minded, and we don't realize that education is also educating about life, about socializing, about exercise, to learn how to take care of your body, which is an education. Because if they're just going to be doing everything virtually, you know, all that aspect, you're right, is gone. You know, you seem like you had some ideas, and I think it'd be important. What would you think that the city could look at, and especially if it ever happens again, right? What would you want them to look at to provide?
They need to have a plan in place, an emergency plan, um, so that they'll be able to address this type of crisis again. They need to have professional development for the staff, anyone that interact with children, so that when these things happen, they know what the expectations are of them, so that they can move forward in a positive way. And that way the kids, even though they know there's a disruption, but they don't feel it as much. And one of the other things that I wanted to bring out earlier was the fact that even with this remote learning, they just assumed that the parents knew how to get on these sites and these websites and open up these computers and notepads for kids so that they can get their lesson. This is one of the reasons why a lot of children were marked absent for school, because parents didn't know what to do and how to do it. So they were not prepared.
Very interesting. Yeah, now I want to go on to something else that you do so many different activities, so let's go one at a time. So what issues do you see plaguing the elderly that you've been advocating for?
Mental illness, making sure that as a senior, that we, and I consider myself one now, I'm in the pool, that we continue to have activities that motivate our minds, our bodies, and also those who are they're not homebound, but are afraid to come out, that there are outreach programs for them. This is why we had a food program going on, hot meals, cold meals, fresh fruits and vegetables. We make sure that not on our watch that a senior was hungry in our community. So, and they were afraid to come out because they didn't understand this pandemic. So they stayed in their homes. And as a result, you know, staying closed up for all of these months or for weeks at a time could create mental problems. So we started talking about home visits, visits, doctors making home visits, checking on your neighbors. We made sure that food got to them, hot food through the RAIN program and other various programs, and that when it could happen, we delivered fresh fruits and vegetables. But mainly the medical piece, we made sure that those who wanted home doctor visits were able to plan for one. Before the pandemic, we created an app. We partnership with Bronx Lebanon Hospital, whereas they can make appointments on their app. From NYCHA, they gave the seniors free notepads, and we were teaching them how to use the notepad. In addition, we helped them download the apps where if they needed to make appointments, they could. We showed them how to get their apartment maintained through NYCHA. We downloaded the NYCHA app So, they were very much part of our priority in making sure that this community worked.
That's a beautiful thing because, my mother, when she was alive, she got into her 90s. And that's one of the things that I did for her is I got her, a little notepad, and my daughter and I sat with her, and my wife, and went over with her how to use it, because elderly are not really technically savvy, and things that we assume they really have no clue. I remember how difficult it was for her, and even sometimes if they don't use it, just the fact, like you said, that we're giving them attention, that we're spending time with them. That point of yours is so important. I remember when I used to spend time with her, how it just, she would totally change. My wife and I would always comment about that.
Yes. Yes, there's nothing like human interaction, human touch. There's nothing, no replacement for it. There isn't.
That's absolutely true. And, so let's go on to, like I said, you cover so many facets in your community. What do you feel in terms of families and communities? What has to happen to improve, in your borough and in the city in general, for families and communities?
That even though we may have separate, like we have the youth, we have the adults, we have the seniors, they don't understand when it comes to family, we have to address, and this is what was my motto when back in the days in educating, in order to educate the child, we have to embrace the entire family. And that's the way we have to move forward. Where there is a family structure, we have to embrace the entire family. We have to service the entire family in order for us to meet with success, in order for them to meet with success.
That's so true. It's an entire entity. It's not little pieces, and it all goes together. I think one of the things that the COVID brought out to a lot of people is how much we really are integrated, and how much really just the simple things that are not expensive, but are the more just relationship and contact, like you said, and how important that is in staying sane, a good mind, like you said, keeping good mental health by communicating with others, and really even physical health that is starting to be studied now in terms of socializing. There's some studies going on in that regard. Very interesting points that you're bringing out. I see that you actually also got involved, and you've been involved in empowering the business side of the community. Tell us a little bit about what you've done with that.
Well, I've actually sat on the planning board. And on the planning board, what we do, we look at businesses that want to come in our community, and we look at the service that they will render. We look at the targeted population. We look at the fact that we're not overlapping services in the community. And we make sure that they hire also from the community, and that the resources that they're bringing is relevant to the existence or everyday life of the community or the area that they'll be servicing.
Very interesting. And so that can the planning board offer a business like some type of break to give them an incentive to come into the borough, or is that possible or not?
Well, what they're doing, they're running into the borough. You really don't have to solicit. They're coming in because they already did their homework. They look at the demographic. They know the people who live there. They know the population. So when they come and they do a presentation to the planning board listens to the presentation and see if they're going to or trying to meet the need. Maybe we have a deficit in the area that needs a supermarket, or needs a gas station, or needs a mall, or And we look at that and we was like, wow, yeah, that will work. So that's when we make those type of decisions, we vote on it. But at the same time, we don't just give them the entire cow. We says, well, this is what you do. If this is what you want, this is what we want. We need you to hire X amount of community people. Because a lot of time they like to come in and already have their people they want to hire. But we says, you know, if you're going to get anywhere in here, when people see faces of people that they know, you're going to do 200 times better.
That's very true. I just came back from a weekend where Bobby Hunter and I were down with the world mayors in Tuskegee, and they actually had some businesses that came in, and that's actually what happened down there, is that there's a business coming in down there that's going to set up and give jobs to the local people and help stimulate the economy. In return, the government is helping them. It seems like a, you know, like you said, it's a win-win proposition to, you know, being realistic with each other.
Yes. Yes, it is.
It makes a lot of sense. You know, it's like, it's good that that's happening. And because, you know, everyone needs a job. One of the things I've seen is that when someone has a purpose, they really are much happier in their life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What changes or what do you envision that you would like to see occurring, you know, in Bronx and New York City in these next few years?
I like to see less crime, less violence. I like to see a much stronger educational system. I like to see more jobs created for those of all ages, because everyone focuses on the youth, but there are older adults that need jobs as well. More jobs and more housing. More housing. So less people in the shelter and more people in apartments.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I always say is that those people were once children, like you had mentioned, and something went wrong when they were young, and so now they got into this situation when they're older. And so it's a whole community picture. It's not just like this is separate from that or this one's separate from this. But if we help to stabilize, like you said, that family and those communities at an early time, you're so right. You know, they have a stable home, they have stable jobs. You're so right. And you know, one of the things that Bobby Hunter and I have been doing is, for that same reason, is educating one about drugs. And because there's an interesting statistic that 90% of these shootings are one way or another related to a drug problem, and that shooter is on some type of drug.
Yes.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yes. 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 There are so many of them, doctor, that want to get off the street and don't know how. And we have to offer them training, job skill training, job readiness, and give them the opportunity to work. Because when I talk to them, I said, there's no retirement from this type of work. You do know that you're not going to collect a pension. So you might as well come on and let me send you into a training program. Let me help you get a job. Let me help you get your resume prepared. And a lot of them want this, but they're afraid to make that move, because a lot of them, you know, they got this whole thing, someone's looking at them, they're afraid to be, I'm afraid to be smart scenario. So when I let them know, I said, this is about you and no one else. I said, because if you get caught out there, no one else is going to do your time but you. I said, you have to decide whether you want to do your time on the outside or you want to do it on the inside. If you want to change, I'm offering it to you. So a lot of them take it and they come back, thank you so much. We gave free OSHA training, 30-hour OSHA scaffolding, flagging, and CPR to over 100 community young men. And they went on to work for FedEx, the hospital, construction, and they come back all the time. Oh, Miss Primus, you need something for Christmas? You need Christmas toys? I'm going to bring you some toys, Miss Primus. Oh, here's a donation for some toys, Miss Primus. They come back. They're so grateful that they don't have to look over their shoulders for their freedom now. They go to work, they come home, they get a paycheck every week or every 2 weeks, and they're grateful. And this is what, when the others see these young men and they see that now they're older men, because this happened a couple of years ago, they're older men now and they're on their way having a pension or something. They look at them now and I'm like, I could have, I wish I should have. Oh, Miss Primus, you got any hookup? Could you hook me up, Miss Primus? So now they see, but they have to see someone else do it and be successful at it. And then they'll want it. I have them come in every day. Miss Primus, I'm so tired of it. Could you help me? I'll work anywhere. Do NYCHA have any positions? I'll do anything, Miss Primus. I'm just tired of it. This is not me, Miss Primus. So those are the ones that I bend over backwards and I try to help them because they came to me and say they had enough.
It really, I gotta compliment you because it takes someone with fortitude. Sometimes things are not as easy as they seem. It's easy, like I said, to talk, but what you're doing is, you're really putting yourself out there. And, funny thing I always say is you'd think that when you help that you'd get a lot of, acknowledgement. But sometimes what I've seen is when you help, I don't know why, but it seems to be that a lot of other things come your way too that you didn't expect. So, I wholeheartedly give you, my thank you for what you're doing because, those people one day will come back and, we may be in a situation and they will help us. So, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you so much for what you're doing, Gwendolyn Primus. And I know Bobby Hunter and I are looking forward to working with you in the Bronx community with Art Against Violence, with Drug-Free World Education. And for those of you tuning in, take the example of Gwendolyn Primus and be an advocate for your community and help people out there. And let's make a better world. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet